Hello everyone, my name is mansamusa and welcome back to my channel. Today we're back with another replay analysis video in Advanced Wars by Web. And today we're just going back to the old and gold format of just a normal replay analysis video. I know I've done videos recently both in the One Turn series and in the sort of Guess the Elo series that I was doing with Bongus. In these past few videos I've been uploading, but I just wanted to go back to the standard format, just the normal replay analysis video from start to end. And actually the reason why I wanted to do this matchup in particular is because I actually just finished this game today, and it was a super fun ending, and I thought it would make a great video. I know there's probably a small subset of people out there, maybe even the majority, who are like, you know, half the video on your channel, Mansa, are just games that you did yourself, and like we want to see the pros in this game because, you know, you're not a pro, which, you know, fair, true, I hear you guys. But this is going to be probably the last cast I do of my own games in a while. This one was just really interesting, so I wanted to put it up there. But I do have plans for some more high-level replays coming up in the future. And again, like I was talking about, some of the other series, continuing with those as well. Just talking about this game, though, before we get into it, this is a Sami mirror on the map Mythos, I believe, which is a high funds map. So main things of that in that sentence. One, high funds. Let's start with there. High funds is a different format from standard, where you get to see the whole map just like in standard. But in high funds, you have double the income, which means you're going to get a lot more and a lot bigger units on the map as the days progress. So you're talking neo tanks, mega tanks, bombers. These types of units are going to be proliferating the field very quickly. This is especially so because this is a mixed base map. You can see that the bases are switched or interposed between the two players. We have two bases here for Black Hole, two for Orange Star, and then in the corners as well. This means action is going to happen very fast on this map. As soon as like day 3 or 4, there's going to be fighting, and fighting with big units like tanks and neo tanks because of the high funds income curve. So yeah, that's both high funds and this map Mythos. The other very interesting aspect of this matchup is that it is a Sami mirror. So this was a tier 4 match. There's a lot of like okay COs in tier 4 for high funds. The main one that people pick generally is either Cole or Sami. Cole because there's a lot of roads and you can get the relatively cheap CO power, which gives you the +1 movement, which is very good in mixed base formats. Adder noticeably is not allowed in tier 4. He's actually a tier 3 CO just because he would actually be too broken with his cheap powers. So it's basically you either choosing Cole for that movement boost, albeit slightly more expensive than someone like Adder in tier 3, or you pick Sami. And the reason why Sami is tier 4 in high funds as opposed to tier 2 in standard, which she is normally a very good CO, is because although her infantry are still very strong, still able to get a bunch of captures off, which you might think is even better in high funds, right? Because each city is that much more important. Sami really falls apart because of her day-to-day penalties to direct combat units. She gets a -10% firepower for direct combat units, and when you're gonna have so many tanks, neo tanks, mega tanks out there, that is a huge disadvantage, especially if your opponent goes for someone like Jess, who I think was also available in tier 4, who has that +10% extra firepower. So it's gonna be a huge disadvantage if that's the type of matchup you're gonna get into. You really have to be crafty with your infantry and try to get them to have impact throughout the game and just not in the early phase, like the first, you know, 3 or 4 days where they can start getting the captures out. That is kind of the plight of Sami. If you just are winning in those first 4 or 5 days and then you're falling behind in these tank battles, you're definitely going to lose. That being said, though, both me and my opponent chose Sami on this map, and really the main reason why I think we both realize this is that this map is actually very HQ capturable. So the HQ is here on this slab here and this slab here, and there's no black boat covering it, which means it's very exposed. For those of you who don't know how labs work, again, labs are essentially just HQs, where the more labs that are on the map, as long as you have at least one of those labs, you're fine, you're not HQ captured. But on this map, because there's only one lab per piece, the lab is essentially just acting exactly like an HQ would on a normal map. Like I was talking about, though, there's no black boat on it, so it is very exposed. So a well-timed victory march will absolutely win this game, and I think that's actually what my opponent was going for, especially because he is kind of outmatched in this matchup. This is one of the faults of the Advanced Wars by Web system in general. When you go into a new format, because I haven't played a bunch of high-fun games in the past, you get matched up with newer players, even though I have played a bunch in Standard before, and I'm relatively good in Standard. So I am like 1260 elo, something like that, and my opponent was only like 900. So this is a kind of an unfortunate matchup for him for that reason, but, you know, still got to win the game, and if he gets his victory march at the right time, he could absolutely take this game from me without a problem. with all that being said, let's hop right into this match and see just how powerful Sami can be on this map. So we start off with these first few days for my opponent. He's just going to capture the neutral bases and get out some infantry. I'm going to be doing the same. There are a few interesting things about the early capture phase on this map, most notably that you kind of want to skip this airport here in the back as player 1, I believe. That's what Black Hole is on this map. And the reason why is you want to be sure that you get to this city. I believe with the funding curve, I can actually get out a tank on the next turn from this base here, and then potentially interrupt this city if you instead go for the airport first and then this city here. So my opponent realizes this, is going to capture this city, skipping the airport in the process, and this is actually, kind of dangerous at the same time because you're skipping out on 2k, which is even more apparent in high funds than it is in standard, any type of city skipping like this. But I do think it's worth it because you're guaranteeing that you're going to get this city, and you're also applying pressure on the comm tower over here down the road as well. I didn't talk about it earlier, but the comm towers on this map are very, very exposed. They can definitely flip, especially in a Sami matchup with very high power infantry and victory march in general. So that being said, I believe I also do the same skip down here for similar reasons. Get that tank out anyway. The tank is still going to be very strong here. Just applying pressure either in the north or south. I'm going to see essentially where he builds his tank and then move my tank in the opposite direction and just harass some infantry. My opponent gets out some more infantry, goes ahead and captures the city that we were talking about. He actually decides to skip the airport again to get his infantry out here, and I don't think this is a good move. This is actually spending too much time not getting income. It doesn't even actually super help my opponent. There's not like a capture chain he has to really focus on, and the aggressive battles that are going to happen in this area aren't going to happen until like day 7, day 8, day 9. So you really don't need to be this aggressive with your early infantry to this extent. I liked this move, getting the city for sure, but this one definitely should have captured the airport first and then brought up this infantry here. What else? I think similar logic here. Again, the city is not super under threat. I would have just captured the port. You're really skipping out on a lot of income by doing this. And he builds his tank in the south, which basically gives me a free ride to move my tank to the north, start harassing this area, potentially attacking those infantries, capturing the cities by this base here. It's my turn. I bring out my tank, also starting to pressure this comm tower at the same time. I go for my airport in the city, just trying to get some good early income. I build a tank up here in the north. I want to pressure this comm tower as well. And you'll notice I'm not saving any money this turn, but I do think what we're going to get into in a little bit here is it is very good on this map to actually save a little bit of income, especially as your income curve ramps up, because what you can do is completely skip medium tanks or a lot of tanks on the map in general. Tanks for Sami, like I talked about at the beginning of the match, are not that good, but especially towards the mid to end game, once Neo tanks and Mega tanks are on the field, your tanks are absolutely worthless. So you don't want to overinvest too much and build 6, 7, 8 tanks. You really only want 2 or 3 and then just go into building your Mega tanks. So that's what I'm going to be doing, or that's my plan here at least, on these next few turns. So my opponent finally does go and capture the airport, brings out his tank here to start to contest this area a bit more as well. Gets some more good captures, actually skips this city as well, really kind of foregoing a lot of income here. This infantry's plan is obviously going to be to capture this comm tower, and he's probably going to get it for free. I'm not going to be interrupting my own city cap to block it. Comm towers are not that strong. I mean, they're very strong for Sami, they're very important on this map, but because they're so easily flipped, especially when I have such an income lead over my opponent because of his constant city skipping, I'm not worried to let him get the comm tower at the start of the match and then take it back later. So he brings out his infantry on the mountain. This is good movement here. It can now move across this river to this city here and chain to this one here. I'm going to be doing a similar type of thing on my turn. Builds another tank in the center to defend these infantry. And we pass it to my turn. So this tank my tank gets a free hit on his infantry here. Just Sami things here a little bit, only doing 4 damage to the Sami infantry on the city. Sami's tanks are just kind of pitifully weak, but it's still good damage, and it actually messes up his funding curve a little bit because it gets him down to 13,000 funds instead of 14,000, and he's not going to be able to get above that for his next turn builds. I move out some of my infantry, move this infantry here to the mountain. Again, there's another good chain here. You capture the airport first, and then this city, and then take that infantry and move it north a few turns after that. Do the same movement with this infantry, trying to get this chain here. Get some more good caps by my base up in the north, and bring my tank down to contest the comm tower area as well. So here's what I was talking about on the previous turn, this saving money idea. You'll notice I saved 8,000 here, and if we do some math here, that'll be exactly 36,000 total funds in the next turn. That is going to allow me to build a Neo tank and still have money left over for something like an additional tank, definitely at least 3 infantry, maybe even something like an anti-air if I need to. Actually, this airport's not even being captured yet, so there's no reason to build an anti-air. So it's basically going to be saving me enough money to absolutely get my Neo tank out and potentially another tank as well, or just save up additional money for future turns to get another Neo tank out without any concern on later days. So he goes ahead and captures this city here with the far back infantry, and then the one that was further pushed forward, he goes ahead and captures the comm tower. Brings this tank out here to defend. Builds a city up in the north, trying to respond to this tank here now. This infantry actually doesn't move. Yeah, it's kind of a good idea. There's probably no good space for it. This is probably the best. You could try to run it away, and I'm probably not going to pursue it to start capturing some of these cities. I maybe actually would have done that. But overall, kind of a tough spot there for my opponent. And my opponent also saves a little bit of money. He did build a tank up in the north, so I don't think he'll be able to... Yeah, he's not going to be able to build a Neo tank to respond to my Neo tank on this turn, and that's kind of a big disadvantage. You don't want to be a full days behind on your opponent's Neo tank. You kind of need to respond to wherever they build their Neo tank. So we'll see what I go ahead and do on this turn. Move out the tank here, put it on the city. Because of a Sami versus Sami matchup, putting your tanks on cities is actually very strong because she just doesn't have the firepower to do any actual damage, so it can kind of become a chicken dance where no one actually wants to attack the other player and everyone's just kind of sitting on cities, because to attack is actually to lose a very strong advantage. So we'll see how that plays out here in a little bit. And because of this, you're essentially forced to tech up. So I go ahead and build my Neo tank up in the north here. And the main reason why is because he's already spent a lot of time and money and resources to capture this comm tower. And rather than just fighting over here on what should be my strong side, the 2 base over here, to get this comm tower, I think it's more powerful to just flip the comm tower that he worked so hard for. So yeah, I'm going to be sending battle copters, Neo tanks, and with these 2 bases trying to crunch this area and then recapture the comm tower he's going to get on this next turn. So I go ahead and build the Neo tank and then the 3 infantry. Actually, I'm looking at my funds now. I must have been looking at my unit value or something. I actually did not have enough funds to build a tank. So that saving of money on the previous turn was absolutely necessary because I only have 1,000 gold left over in purchasing this Neo tank. So my opponent does go ahead and get the comm tower and the city, goes for a nice free engagement here of the infantry on the mountain. Again, it's pretty similar to the one that I get up here, where he just ran away from this tank and got the free hit there. So good for my opponent. He moves out his tank. He now has 2 tanks in this area addressing this comm tower, and this infantry is actually in range. So if I'm not careful, my opponent will get both comm towers on the map. And that is definitely a position I don't necessarily want to be in without having at least like a 4 to 5 city advantage on my opponent in terms of overall income, that I feel comfortable that I can come back and get these comm towers in the late game of this map. My opponent goes ahead and captures the airport, builds an artillery. This is going to be very strong. The artillery is going to go here and bust open the pipe scene. This will allow this 2 base to have not only pressure on the left, but in the center as well, and get some good pressure on those cities. I'm going to be doing a similar thing on my turn. I don't think Blink on this turn, but on a future one. And like I talked about earlier, he goes ahead and sits on the comm tower as well, making sure that I can't capture it. And I don't have anything to clear off because, again, Sami's tanks are just so bad. I move my Neo tank out. It's going to be defending this tank here. Get a nice free hit there on the infantry on the plains. Move out some of my other infantry. Go ahead and capture this city here. There's actually no way that my opponent can interrupt this capture without sending at least this tank to help this infantry interrupt. And because of this, it's going to be kind of a hard proposition for my opponent to do it, especially because I'm going to bring out some of these other infantry to contest the comm tower, and he kind of needs these tanks in this area to help. So, nice move from myself there. I build another Neo tank to address the tanks over here. Again, this is a very strong advantage for myself. I have 2 Neo tanks to my opponent's 0. He did do a good job of saving up some money on his previous turn, so he's going to be able to build a Neo tank this turn. But he is 1 full Neo tank behind, so he's going to have to find a way to get around that with some of his movement. I go ahead and also apply some more pressure by the comm tower here. You can already see I'm going to be streaming in infantry from the south and the Neo tank in the north to try to crunch and then capture this comm tower over here on the left as well. My opponent gets some more good caps. He's going to try to wall off himself and then capture the comm tower. It should be a pretty strong idea for my opponent. He actually had a better opportunity here. If he sent this tank down here and then this infantry over here, it would put him in fully walled off, but I think he's trying to do kind of a cheap wall and not fully commit. We'll see how it works out for him. He gets a nice hit here, killing off my infantry and damaging the tank, and also very smart play here because this Neo tank actually no longer reaches to defend this tank because he's using this infantry to block. So nice idea from my opponent. We'll see if I'll be able to handle that on my next turn. He brings out this tank on the city to also apply more pressure, builds a Neo tank to address my own in the area. Gets a nice hit here on the infantry on the city. Again, this is not going to interrupt because it is Sami, but does get some nice damage. Potentially wants to flip it a few turns down the line. Builds a battlecopter up here in the north to start dealing with the tank and the Neo tank. Builds a mech as well. Mechs are always good for Sami, and this is kind of the base you want to be building them from. They can get over to this area relatively quickly and deal with some of the tanks in the area. And we go to my turn here on day 7. As we roll into my turn here on day 7, let's do a quick board state checkup on this match. So we can see that income perspective-wise, I'm only 2k ahead of my opponent at the start of my turn, which is honestly pretty good. I have some more captures that are going to be happening here down in the south and in these cities up here as well. My opponent does have some own captures of his own, so relatively even match in terms of income. Unit value and unit count-wise, I'm down 3 units at the start of my turn, which is not horrible. It's about where you would expect to be, and same for unit value. About 10,000 behind, about where you would expect to be in a high funds match at the start of your turn. Board state-wise, though, it is a bit more concerning. My opponent already has 1 comm tower over me, and he looks good to get this one as well, unless I do a major interrupting effort. This tank here seems pretty dead in the water, unless this Neo tank finds a way to save it, and he has an overall kind of good defensive posture coming in, especially if this artillery comes in to reinforce to potentially hold this comm tower and thwart my plan of trying to flip it. Let's see how I get on, though, on this turn. So the first thing I do is I actually interrupt my own cap here on the city. This was a full 2k that I had in the bag if I wanted it, to damage the infantry to 8 HP. And this is actually a very strong play because what this allows me to do is fully interrupt this capture, making sure he won't get it with just an infantry, not having to send in this tank to just die right here on the comm tower. So this is a very strong play that I found. This is down to 2 HP now. Even though this is a Sami infantry, 2 HP is not going to capture the comm tower. So I have successfully delayed it for another turn. With my tank now free to attack something else, it goes on the city, giving it good defense as well, and wipes off the 7 HP infantry on the plains. This infantry gets a nice 8-3 engagement on the forest, and I move out my Neo tank to deal with his tanks, and now I'm in a much more favorable engagement. The other idea that I would have had to do if I didn't sacrifice this infantry here on the city is bring this tank where the infantry is and then attack the infantry on the comm tower. And I don't even think that would have been enough to fully interrupt it. My opponent would have gotten the comm tower anyway. So it would have been a very tough play to try to deal with this, giving my opponent 2 comm towers, but this unit sack was a nice find by myself. I continue the chain with this infantry from the airport, capturing this city now. I also move up my other infantry to both capture this city here and the port. With this tank and infantry combo, I'm able to clear off the infantry blocking the way of my Neo tank. This was actually a roll, but it was a pretty safe roll. I had probably like a 85 to 90% chance of getting this 2-hit KO here, and I was able to get it. So now my Neo tank has a free path to go ahead and clear off the tank on the forest, gets a full kill there. Very nice job. And this Neo tank is not in range to retaliate against me. I bring out my infantry, just posturing to capture this city on the next turn and send some more infantry down to get the comm tower as well. I build an artillery to again bust open the pipe seam like my opponent did. I build an anti-air to respond to my opponent's battlecopter. I build my own battlecopter down in the south to apply more pressure just like my opponent did. And I build another tank as well, again just trying to put as many units as possible into this area to try to flip that comm tower. We roll into day 8 here for my opponent. He goes ahead and still tries to capture the comm tower here. I think he's going to try to do a join cap with this 3 HP infantry, but I don't think this is going to work. I just have way too much infantry in the area, plus this Neo tank. I just have pure firepower here. if I was my opponent, I would just kind of give up this whole idea and kind of just be forced to retreat. Maybe save, these tanks down the line so you can interrupt my own captures on this comm tower, but trying to play defensively here and stick around is just not going to work. I have too much of a firepower advantage in the area. But like I said, my opponent does go for it. He goes for the join cap, gets a nice hit here on the infantry on the road. He brings out his battlecopter as well to defend these tanks, but it's just not going to be enough in my opinion. Gets a hit on the infantry on the forest, clears off my 5 HP tank with his tank, and then postures with his Neo tank on the city. I have no intention of hitting this. Like I said previously, tank-on-tank violence is not going to be a good idea for Sami when you have bad terrain in matchups. Instead, what I'm probably going to be doing is moving this Neo tank to the city here and then just attacking his tank on the plane since he gave me that free hit, essentially. Nice hit here, actually. Really nice hit, actually, by my opponent. This simultaneously blocks this infantry from capturing the comm tower and damages this one beyond repair to get it on just the 2 turns. So really nice play here. This extends the life of this comm tower by at least a few more turns for my opponent. So good idea with that infantry. Gets a cute little hit here with the mech on the pipe seam. This is means that it's going to definitely die the next turn from this artillery, and the mech can go forward and apply some pressure in this area. Get some more good caps from my opponent. Builds 2 battlecopters here, so he's gonna get a lot of he's gonna try to get a lot of air superiority. I'm gonna have to respond with a few anti-air of my own. Build some more infantry, and it passes it back to me on day 8. My day 8 here is gonna be very interesting, trying to deal with some of these tanks here and potentially this Neo tank on the city. So first thing I do, I don't attack the Neo tank like I said, I just instead go for this good engagement here, 10-2 on the tank on the plane. I'm able to finish it off with this infantry here. I think that was a roll, but again, a relatively easy roll to get, and I'm going to block off the forest with this infantry here so that he doesn't have a good engagement path, and I'm going to make him attack from the plains if he wants to. And again, it's just not a good roll, so he's probably not going to do it. Over here on the right side of the map, I go for an engagement here. I get a little unlucky with the roll 6-6, but it is what it is. Main reason of doing that is to free up the tile space to again go for this capture, and it's the same thing as it was a few turns ago. There's no real good way for him to interrupt this without sending both a tank and an infantry, and he definitely doesn't want to do it now with his current setup in this position. With the Neo tank, I get a nice 10-2 engagement here on the tank, and I bring out my anti-air to both finish off the tank and protect the Neo tank against the battlecopter. Use the infantry to clear off the comm tower. Bring out my artillery to attack the pipe scene on the next few turns. Wipe off the infantry here on the road. Send in both my battlecopter and my tank. My tank is also applying a little bit of pressure here to the right. I'm a little scared about these 3 properties, and the tank just provides some additional defense in the area, especially as supported by my battlecopter against his potential battlecopter attacks here. I sent out my infantry up here to the only safe space it had. If I tried to actually capture the port, it would have died to his double attack here that he could have done with this infantry. So this square is actually the only one not in range of these 3 infantry. So found a little safe spot for it. I go ahead and start the capture on the comm tower. This is just a little cheeky, getting some early capture on it. And more than anything else, just kind of blocking the escape path for this tank here, making sure I can finish it off on the next turn. With my builds, I build a... okay, there was the infantry move on the forest to block that tile away from the Neo tank. I decided to actually build a black boat. This is a little bit because I feel good about my income, but also it's going to be a very strong play down the road. I can ferry an infantry over here to get this island city that's going to be 2k, so the black boat's going to earn itself in after 4 turns. And also down the line, I can be building more infantry to ferry with this black boat all the way to the front line here by the comm tower. Because Sami has +1 movement on her transport, the black boat actually fully reaches to these shore tiles, which other COs are not going to have from the port. So very strong for Sami. You can get infantry down to this contested area very quickly with a black boat. So that's my plan. I also attacked this infantry here on the forest. I had ideas of actually retreating this infantry, but I just decided to go for the attack because, again, the only thing that can attack back is this battlecopter, and it's not going to do that with my own in the area. And the 5 HP on the infantry is actually going to slow down the caps now of the port or the city if my opponent wants to go for it. I build another anti-air here up in the north because the only thing left that's actually threatening is these battlecopters, and I pass it to my opponent. We roll into day 9 for my opponent, and I gotta be honest, when I actually ended my turn on the previous day, I was a little concerned rolling into this turn because I thought there was a chance my opponent could actually get Victory March. If he's only able to get, what is this, around 4 stars, this infantry is in range to capture my HQ and he can win the game. That's the big threat that we were talking about from the start of this replay analysis. And if one of the top players is watching this replay analysis or is in the comms or something, let me know if I actually could have lost on this turn. Spoiler alert, I don't. He doesn't find a way to get Victory March, but I am kind of curious to see if he could have sacrificed enough units to get to it. There's also a potential idea where he pops at double time and tries to get this capture, but that's not going to work. I just have too much anti-air in the area to clear off the infantry, so it has to be a Victory March play, but I just don't think there's enough room to sacrifice. You have this big Neo tank on Neo tank engagement you can do. You can sacrifice this tank into my Neo. You can sacrifice your battlecopter into the anti-air. That's the big power charging things that you could do, but the rest of them don't have a lot of good options. This battlecopter is not in range of my own to get a big hit there. And same thing with the tank, so all you have left really is a bunch of infantry engagements, and I don't think that would have been enough for 4 stars to get Victory March and ultimately win the game. So I think realizing this, my opponent just goes for more of a normal turn. He clears off my infantry on the comm tower to get the hit on the Neo tank. This is kind of throwing away his battlecopter in the process, but I think he's just trying to get some chip damage on the Neo and then build a Neo of his own from this base. Same thing there, just trying to get some chip damage on the Neo. He busts open the pipe scenes, get this capture here. He does a nice move here of blocking the comm tower again with the Neo. This again delays my ability to try to flip the comm tower. It's going to take multiple turns now for my Neo and the battlecopter combo to clear it off and then send my infantry into the area. Gets a relatively good engagement here with the battlecopter on the infantry. This battlecopter has bigger tasks to worry about, trying to clear off the Neo tank, so kind of good, kind of bad. It's probably not going to do that. It's probably going to attack the battlecopter anyway because he doesn't have anti-air support. If he had anti-air support, I would like this engagement a bit more, but he doesn't, so kind of a bad move, IMO. He builds a bomber from this airport. This is going to be nice to address my Neo tank in the area. Kind of also good to address the anti-air. It's going to force me to build another one on the next turn for sure to deal with the bomber. And moves this infantry back now to capture the port. This is in range of this infantry though, so it's kind of just throwing away an infantry actually. He blocks it off in the front so this infantry can attack, moves out his tank to the good terrain, builds a anti-air to deal with some of my battlecopters, goes for the roll here actually. I think with the comm tower, he actually had a chance here, a very, very slim chance, like a 10% chance to knock this down to 4 HP, which if that happened would have interrupted the cap, but because it's a 5-7 engagement, it doesn't. Moves out his infantry, builds a tank up in the north, and we pass it to my turn here on day 9. We roll into my turn here on day 9, and the observant viewers amongst you may have seen something very interesting that happened on that last turn. My opponent left his HQ open. Just like I was concerned on the previous turn that Victory March may come in and immediately win my opponent the game, my opponent should have been concerned about the same thing. I'm only 3.5 stars away from Victory March, and this infantry is in range to capture. So if I can find enough unit sacrifices or enough damage to get Victory March, I will win this game on this turn. But it's still going to be tricky. There's a lot of things, a lot of units on the board to try to find this, but let's just hop right into the turn and see if I was able to find a very exciting Sami win in this position. So we can see I clear off the infantry here on the road, and I'm immediately going to be going for some attacks and some bad engagements here, just trying to build power charge. I go first here for the infantry engagement on the city. Bad engagement here, just trying to build some power charge, get a 5-6 engagement there. I fully sacrifice this tank into the battlecopter, losing 1 unit. So actually we'll do a unit counter somewhere on the screen here of total units lost on this turn that I sacrificed into the void in order to get some power charge here. So again, go for a relatively bad engagement here on the battlecopter. Again, bad's going to be used in quotation. Just build some power charge, bring in my anti-air to finish it off. Clear off the infantry here on the port. Go for an engagement here on the battlecopter just to build some more charge. Sacrifice 2 more infantry into the fray, so I think that's up to 3 units completely killed on this turn. Get a nice engagement there, 9-2 on the battlecopter, and we're very, very close now to the Victory March, only a few hundred away. Oh, actually, sorry, that's my opponent. Where am I at? I am still 11,000 away, so we still got some units to attack in order to get to it, but I have that Neo-Tank on Neo-Tank attack that's going to build a lot of charge still left. 3 units were sacrificed, now we're up to 4 with a full kill there for the Neo-Tank. Might as well get a second one, so that's up to 5 now, and there's 6. So just throw away all the infantry I had in the area to get some more charge. I see the goal is now just at, what is that? Just over 7,000. We go for the Neo-Tank engagement, and we get the super power. I still had a bunch of sacrifices I could have done this turn that I was planning in Move Planner. These 2 infantry can attack these 2 infantry over here. The Battlecopter can attack the mech to get some more charge, and I think... oh yeah, and then this infantry here on the forest can attack this tank, sacrificing itself as well. Those were the main power charging moves I had left. So relatively kind of scary. This infantry also could have sacrificed it over here on the right, but I didn't have a much power charge left. I probably had like 2 to 3k left I could have squeezed out if I needed it, but relatively scary turn. But now that I have Victory March, I have won the game at this point. I go ahead and pop it, and then I think I go for some Victory Marches of my own here, getting some city captures just to gloat a bit. Get the comm tower, finally am now equalizing comm tower 1-on-1. Capture the city here, capture the port. Capture the city up in the north, this one here next to me, and then build the celebratory 2 missiles, 2 APCs, and then finally capture the HQ. So I win the game here. This is actually my first time fully winning a game in a while. Most of the games on Advanced Wars by Web are actually a resign, so it's kind of interesting to get a win in the traditional sense. But this is a great game. Again, GG's to the lookout point. I have problems a little bit with the elo system, like I talked about at the start of the game. I am like, what is that? Like 500 elo points higher overall than my opponent, and just because I'm relatively new to high funds, they matched us up. Like, that's just kind of sucks for my opponent. Like, there's probably no winning this match for him, unless he was able to somehow get Victory March on the previous turn. I do think he went for good strategy, going for Sami in this matchup to try to find some cheese. This is a map that is very easily cheesable. But at the end of the day, you know, having what is essentially, you know, 500 elo over your opponent is going to be very strong. Is going to give you a good chance to win this game. So to all the haters out there that are looking at all the replays that I've done on this channel that are just my replays and been like, oh, this guy thinks he's great. Like, yeah, okay. I feel you out there. This is probably not going to be good for my narrative there. But exciting game, a lot of fun. Just great to cover a Sami game where you have these 6 or 7 unit sacrifices that barely eke you out Victory March and win you the game. I think they're always exciting, whether they're happening in standard, fog, or high funds. So I'm excited to play some more high funds, get some more experience in the format, to just get better at the game overall. And I'm excited as well to bring out some more content to the channel. Again, I'm going to be trying to continue the one-turn series and the Guest of the Elo series. If you guys have any other ideas or videos in the future, please put them down in the comments. I'll be happy to add those to the rotation as well. I'm thinking of potentially doing a Civilization 7 series, or just kind of dipping my toe in the water there. I know that game's coming out in about a week or so, and, you know, being MansaMusa, the whole reason I named myself that is because I liked playing MansaMusa in Civ 6, so it could be coming to the channel as well at some point. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. My name is MansaMusa, and remember, when facing Sami, keep a unit on your HQ. Bye, guys.